Today we celebrate communion, and once a quarter we incorporate the ordinance of foot washing. So some of you might wonder, why do we do foot washing? The Last Supper marked the end of Jesus' physical ministry on earth, but it was only the beginning of the disciples' ministry. Foot washing was not a ritual of purity, although it did refresh the disciples' dusty feet. This was Jesus' last lesson about what it really means to be his disciples. Foot washing wasn't about becoming cleaner or purer, as Jesus made clear to Peter, but a preparation for service. Foot washing is not just for the holy, but for the willing. Foot washing is not a prerequisite for purity and participation in communion, but an invitation and an initiation into service. There's a book written quite a few years ago, a couple decades at least, called Out of the Salt Shaker and Into the World by Rebecca Manley Pippert. And it describes Christians who are in a salt shaker, and that does really nothing for the rest of the world, right? When you're in the salt shaker, when we're all in this church together, we are of no use to the world outside of us. And part of our duty as the church, the sent out church, the missional church, is to be out in the community. That's out to get out of the salt shaker and into the world. And so foot washing to me is this initiation in saying, okay, we're going to serve the rest of the world. Now let's first practice on each other. Let's see how we can serve each other before we can go out into the world. So I'd like to think that foot washing is that initiation. It is actually an invitation. Foot washing is an invitation to leave this holy space and go back into the world. As in the book, Out of the Salt Shaker and Into the World, in the introduction, it mentions something about there are two steps a Christian must make. The first is for the natural person to become holy, to become spiritual. And that's a necessary step. Everyone has to make that step. But the second step is one where the holy person, the spiritual person, becomes natural again, goes back into the world. And that is the second, called the second turning. And I would like to think that the foot washing is that second turning, where from the world we become spiritual, we come into church and become holy and all the things that we're supposed to be. But after that, there's the second turning where we go back into the messiness of this world. We start to wash each other's feet. We wash our neighbor's feet. And that's dirty and messy business. But that is the necessary second step towards this journey, spiritual journey. So I invite you to think about service and how you want to be of service to the community, and start practicing today during the foot washing. That is the reason we wash our feet. It's not a prerequisite for purity, but an invitation to service. Let's now greet each other and start to meet a few people and practice on how we get to know our neighbors.